Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you guys there. I was so engrossed in my reading material that I was beside myself and I lost track of time. I guess it's time to start the live. I bought a copy of Becky Hill's book because of all this nonsense, and I can't wait to share with it what all my little tabs have in store for y'all. I'm Collier Landry. Let's get into it.
Testimony continued today in the most notorious criminal trial in...
When I was 12 years old, my testimony sent my father to prison for murdering my mother. I decided at an early age that our trauma should not be what defines us. It's what we choose to do with it that does. I'm here to share my unique perspective on true crime, mental health, society, and popular culture, albeit with a slight sense of humor. I'm Collier Landry, and welcome to my show. Mover Nation. Oy vey. If anything ever deserves an oy vey, it is this Murdaugh saga with Becky Hill. And look, I want to be really clear. I don't like going for low-hanging fruit. I don't like to feel like I'm picking on people because it's just not in my nature. However, that said, these people set themselves up, and it's just astonishing to me. A lot of you have asked me about this, and I can't believe I bought this thing. But by the way, it's still on sale because it came yesterday. I purchased it right after our live when a bunch of you messaged me and said, no, it's still on Amazon. Why don't you go and get it? I got it. This is Behind the Doors of Justice, written by Becky Hill and Neil Gordon. And I've been talking about this for like the last couple of weeks because I find it fascinating. And let's just put it this way. It's a very lighthearted. It's also really tragic too, because all of this debacle, you can't trust anyone's credibility anymore that's involved in this case. And I think I told you guys, I thought for the longest time, all of the corruption and everything would be on the Murdaugh side of things. But now I'm starting to think like it's just everybody. And, sorry, my eyes are leaking a little bit. As you know, I had LASIK surgery on Friday, and I am still loving it. I'm still loving it. It was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. And if you're thinking about it, I cannot highly recommend it anymore. I cannot recommend it any more highly. That's what I mean to say. Grammatical decay sets in. But probably because I've been reading this book, so my grammar and structure of the English language has been challenged over the last several hours. Look, there are many things that I have highlighted in this copy, and I'm going to do a little AI sort of search on the things that are going on and to sort of point out the inconsistencies, if you will. Look, when you dig into this book, it's only 260 some pages. Actually, it is only 171 pages of actual written text because there are, as promised, lots of photographs in here, as you can see. And it's okay. So let's get to the very crux of where all of this lies and where the arguments had stemmed on, the arguments had come back and forth with Neil Gordon and this lawyer, Lori, and all of these characters that are involved in all of this. Look, one of the things is that there's this two ethics complaints that were reported by Fitz News. Shout out to them. They do great work. I give them a shout out every time. They're doing fantastic work. And they're mentioned several times in this book, by the way. Will Folks, I believe, hold on here. It's in the photographs here because, I think it's Will Folks. I don't want to mispronounce anyone's name, but they're mentioned in here quite fondly of the relationship, which also he talks about when reporting on Becky Hill, how much of sort of an internal conflict or cognitive dissonance it is because he had a really great relationship with her for years. So to see him sort of, but reporting what he believes is the truth and what apparently is the truth, by the way. Will Folks. Yes. And this is, I believe, I don't know if he's in this picture or not. This is from chapter 19. All the photographs are laid out very interestingly. So you can see, let's see here. There we go. So you can see, and it says Will Folks of Fitz News right there, somewhere. Sorry, camera's reversed from reality. So, she taught, she speaks fondly of him. But at the crux of all this is these ethics complaints. And, they supposedly pulled this book off the shelves because Neil Gordon had discovered that part of it was plagiarized because of this foreword that Becky Hill had written. And we're going to actually compare the actual, because I've taken photographs of it, and then I'm going to use AI to scan through the documents, the PDFs of the emails, to see if I can track down the emails. Well, we're going to do that right here live, if it'll work, if the PDF will let me search it. But one of the things that is at the crux of this ethics investigation is Becky Hill's abuse of power as she was the clerk of courts there at Colleton County, which everyone has been saying, yeah, this is sort of what she did. And it's really like all this is just so unfortunate because you've now just dragged so many people into this debacle. It's pretty nutty, but let me see here. So let's see here. So one of the things that was again, these accusations of her abuse of power and allowing certain people, currying favor, doing certain things to accommodate other people when there were spectators outside the courtroom that had been waiting and waiting and waiting. And the preface of the book just opens up as a complete contradiction to anything that Becky Hill was saying in her defense, which was that she did not abuse her power. The foreword, not the preface, the foreword, which is written by Rhonda Rich, who I don't know who she is, but she's apparently a best-selling author and good for her. She said she wrote some quintessential book about about being a Southern woman, I think is what she said. Something to that effect. But we're going to get into that. So I'm going to read this foreword. Southern storytelling is both my heart and my trade. As a best-selling author and syndicated newspaper columnist, I write stories as seen through the eyes of the South and its people, so I move around the region, looking for colorful characters and enthralling experiences. It was the allure of the Southern Gothic murder trial that drew me to Walterboro, South Carolina, and led to my introduction to one of the most astounding Southern women who has ever crossed my path. From the moment I met Becky Hill, I knew that the divine hand of God was moving and that only an almighty power could have brought us together. Crowds lined up every morning, beginning at 4:30 a.m., for a seat to view the trial of Alec Murdaugh, accused of the heinous double murder of his wife and son. Once the courtroom was filled, a large group pooled outside for the remainder of the day, hoping for a seat that it might be vacated. With that crowd I stood, never considering that I would ever see the inside of the courtroom, but knowing that I would, nonetheless, find interesting stories from the people who gathered under the moss-covered trees, which, by the way, sounds like actually a really fantastic idea to hang outside the courtroom underneath the trees and talk to the people. I don't know who this woman is, but obviously she's clearly a very inquisitive person that always makes for a good storyteller. So props to her for saying that. That's where I would be, hang out with the masses, get down and dirty, get the real scoop. That's a good journalistic instinct. So shout to Rhonda Rich for saying that. One man went to a concession stand and generously brought back an armload of icy water bottles, much appreciated in the humid South Carolina day. And, she sets a really nice tone of this is a nice, small Southern community where, people, which is a very rare thing these days. Look, I live in the big city and, kindness is, we hope to have it and have it around us, but sometimes it isn't the first thing that people extend to other people. So to know that still exists in small corners and pockets of our country is fabulous. Colleton County authorities were kind. One deputy brought her phone out and propped it up on a chair so we could watch the live television coverage. With such neighborliness, I was brave enough to enter the courthouse and ask permission to use the ladies' room. Yes, ma'am, right over there. A few minutes later, when I returned, a lovely woman with thick, glimmering blonde hair had her arms propped up on the metal detector, thoughtfully studying a video monitor of the courtroom. She glanced around to smile at me, then immediately asked, "How many are in your party?" "Just me," I replied. She winked, a look of pure joy dancing across her face. "I have a seat for you. See this chair?" She pointed to the monitor. "It's right in front of the judge. I'm going to take you through the door at the front of the courtroom. Slip in quietly and go straight to that chair." My eyes widened. "Is it okay for me to sit there?" "Yes, it is," she replied cheerfully. "That's my seat, and I'm giving it to you." Within minutes, I found myself sitting in front of the judge's bench, eye to eye with the notorious Alec Murdaugh and his team of defenders. I was stunned. I live in a world where many people, famous and infamous, move in and out of my days, yet Becky Hill had just gifted me with an extraordinary, once-in-a-lifetime experience. So, I feel certain, well, I'll just continue. I feel certain that when my final hours are drawing to a close and I am recalling with faint breath life's most memorable people and experiences, that Becky and the Murdaugh trial will reside near the top. God, I hope not. Really, Rhonda. Like, I hope that that's not what you think about. But hey, maybe it is. Again, I got no beef with this woman. She sounds lovely. And I've got no beef with any of these people, to be honest with you. I mean, I've got beef with people who kill people for sure, but I've got no beef and steal from people and lie and cheat. Yeah, I have massive beef with that, Alec Murdaugh and company. But I do have beef with the sense of decorum in which they operate. Rhonda Rich is not one of those people. But let me go back to the key sentence in all this. Within minutes, I found myself sitting in front of the judge's bench, eye to eye with the notorious Alec Murdaugh and his team of defenders. Becky Hill. I was stunned. I live in a world where many people, famous and infamous, move in and out of my days. Yet Becky Hill had just gifted me with an extraordinary once-in-a-lifetime experience. That said, in these ethics complaints, the crux of them is her abusing her power while she was the clerk of court. She just curry favor with a best-selling author and a journalist. Let me let that sink in for a moment. Admitted this is page Roman numeral 6. We're not even to the real page numbers in this book. It is apparent that Becky Hill used her power to curry favor with people and to be someone of influence and prominence in the proceedings around the Murdaugh trial, as if enough hadn't already been put on her plate as the clerk of courts. But she used it to give up her own seat in the courtroom to someone who is a journalist and an author. And she wrote a book. And this woman wrote the foreword to her book. Now, this is the court of public opinion. She has committed no crime. There is nothing wrong with any of this, but I'm just going to weigh in on this. If you are accused of ethics violations and abusing your power, and you publish a book, and within the foreword of the book, someone basically outlines how you abused your power, why are you astonished? Why are you lying? Like, you have no leg to stand on. Which is the problem with all of this, because now her entire credibility over the entire trial, everything that has been, I mean, you couldn't make this up. Like, you could not literally sit here. Look, I work in Hollywood. I work with screenwriters. You couldn't be in a writer's room and say, you know what? She's going to write a book and she's going to be accused of these ethics violations. And then she's going to have this woman expose her ethics violations in the foreword of her own book. You can't script this better. A few of you asked the other day on the live do I think that all of this is done with the Murdaughs? I don't think any of this. I think this whole I think we have only touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all of this. Because if this is how sloppy they are, can you imagine what is going to come down the pike? Woo! I mean, yeah. These are the things that I just think are very, very, I mean, this is just so blatant. And that, obviously she loved the spotlight. And she says in this foreword, and I think this is the foreword that they're saying was plagiarized. We're going to do a little searchy search with the AI in a second. Yes, Billy Hardy, dumb, but I wouldn't say dumb, and dumber. I would say dumb, and dumber. Debbie Richmond, you say it doesn't seem that Becky is just nice to be nice. She has a motive. Yeah, it would seem that. Yeah, it is just it is just. Yes, this is a hoot. Who needs comedy? Who needs comedy when you have comedy of this? I mean, this is just all I need to know is in the Bible. Southern lady yelled at me. Oh, thank you so much. Yes, nice guitars. Yes, do. Sometimes they get played on the show. We'll see. Lots more in 2024. So in her foreword, so I don't know if this is the whole plagiarized foreword, how much of this was the plagiarized material, but apparently this was part of this. She says, let me backtrack here a little bit. So Thursday, March 2nd, the time on the clock in the back of the courtroom read 3:05 p.m. At 6:20 p.m., only 3 hours and approximately 15 minutes after the court had released the jurors to deliberate, I walked through the courtroom and down the hallway leading to the jury room to ask my jury bailiff, Bill Polk, what the jurors would like for supper. A jury bailiff is seated outside the jury room at all times during deliberation, and in short order, Bailiff Polk relayed a message from the jurors that there was no need to order anything for them to eat, as their verdict was coming soon. Now, why wouldn't they want free food? Come on now. Come on. This was unusual. Most murder trials take some time for the jury to reach a decision, but apparently the jurors were satisfied they would be returning to the courtroom shortly with a verdict. I was caught a bit off guard. Then a slight nervousness began to take hold as I immediately realized I would soon be center stage in the courtroom, delivering one of the most serious, most important tasks a clerk of court in a trial, reading the verdict. I would very soon be standing before the judge, jurors, prosecutors, defense, news media, interested citizens, and cameras broadcasting to the entire world to read the Murdaugh murder trial verdict. I had read verdicts in previous court cases, but none of those cases, nor any experience I had in life, prepared me for the pressure that moment would hold. This case had been long and horrific for our small county, and it had gained international attention. Now here comes the best part. Some might view this opportunity as a payoff moment in a clerk of court's career, a chance to be a part of courtroom history. After all, one does not step into such a position without being a bit of a legal eagle. My entire career had led me to this point from the ground up. I had been a middle school teacher, worked in the state at a local disabilities agency, and held administrative roles in law offices for many years, and served as a court reporter for the state of South Carolina before I announced my candidacy for clerk of courts and was elected in November of 2020. I put in the effort. While I always hoped to be a part of history, I didn't foresee it being this way, reading a verdict about someone I personally knew. While some might view this as an opportunity as a payoff moment in a clerk of court's career, Well, I would say some might view this as a payoff opportunity in a clerk of court's career. That's what I would say is the payoff opportunity. I mean, never underestimate the predictability of stupidity or the predictability of hubris, really, in this. This is so bad. This is so bad because she does say some things that, and apparently she had it. She writes in this book that she had clearly Colleton County is very similar to a community that I grew up in where everybody knows everybody. And as somebody who lives in a big city now and has for the past 2 decades, that kind of gets lost on you. I was just recently around. Oh, I left that comment back for a while. It is just, it is, it kind of becomes lost on you. But I just went back to Ohio, and then I see how close to everyone is. And I think back to like my father's trial and how this same circus must have unfolded. But everybody seemed to know everybody. I mean, she talks about her experience working with Alec Murdaugh and his brothers and the Murdaugh family, because again, it is something that is just, it's a very incestuous environment, which, I mean, I totally get. It makes complete sense to me. And it probably does really put everyone in a state of cognitive dissonance. Now, if you don't know what cognitive dissonance is, I was reading an article earlier today on Apple, which I would love to share, but it was in the Scientist magazine, and it was talking about vaping. And now there's new studies that are coming out about vaping. This is a little bit of a tangent, but this will give you what cognitive dissonance is. Cognitive dissonance is something to the effect of, I smoke cigarettes. I do not smoke cigarettes, but like you smoke cigarettes and you know that cigarettes are bad for you, but you continue to smoke. So your body, you know that something is bad for you, but you continue to do that behavior, and it puts your cognitive skills in dissonance, which is a term that describes, in music we use dissonance a lot, but it puts you at odds, and it's an internal conflict that you're creating yourself, right? I know smoking is bad for me, but I still continue to smoke. I know drinking is bad for me, but I still continue to drink, et cetera, et cetera. And this article I was reading this morning, we talk about the stats behind vaping, which is almost worse than smoking, it appears, due to all the other stuff that it goes on with it. But that's another conversation for another day. The amount of cognitive dissonance that must have been going through, like everybody involved in this case, is just mind, head, body, like everything that they were dealing with has got to be like a whole other, like very next level with all of this. I want to go back to somebody's comment here I just saw. God, it's so nice to not have to wear glasses and read everything. Like I can read all this clear. Tilo, she says she ain't making any money off that book. Well, she made my $20. Well, actually, I think in the Amazon, if you sell it, I think it's probably like, so if it was $20, I think the split with Amazon it's pretty astronomical. I think they either take 60% or they take 40% or something like that. They're on the YouTube level of taking money, which is all good. Very, very grateful for the opportunity, and very grateful, I'm sure, for people to sell things on Amazon. But I think they take I think if it's not pre-made, like if you don't pre-print these, I think if they do like a print on demand, it's like exorbitantly expensive. So she's probably not making a lot of money, which is the point of all this. I mean, I guess we're talking about her, so we're perpetuating her narrative and her person and her celebrity, and so maybe there is a lot of payoff with that. A lot of people do things to gain attention for social media clout, things of that nature. You gotta always kind of look at people's ends. I do this because I share my story on YouTube, and then I talk about these things and they fascinate me, and I'm a personality here and what have you. So I understand there is a bit of irony in talking about this. I totally get that. Irony is not lost on me, but I do find this kind of fascinating, and we're all having a good time. So, it's all in jest, right? It's all in good fun, entertainment. That's why this is an entertainment channel. But the thing is that, she has had a very, she had a way about herself of trying to say that she was doing she was very magnanimous in all of this. And really, at the end of the day, it was about writing a book. Like, okay, so now you have somebody who's writing your foreword, and you're putting it in the book. And then you're putting photos of Nancy Grace, who I know a lot of people do not like Nancy Grace. I don't know anything about her other than she became a prosecutor and studied the law after her fiance was murdered. And I think that's really cool. So whatever you might say, I know some people think she's an ambulance chaser or whatever. But I I got to give it to Nancy Grace, right? I don't know if this is God, my hands probably look terrible. I need to use some hand cream. But but she's got like celebrity photos, right? And then that coincides with chapter 11. And then there's like a photo of her daughter. She's got her daughter in here. I think her name is Aubrey, right? Yeah, daughter Aubrey. God, the print is so small and I can read it. I just love it so much. LASIK for the win, guys. LASIK for the win. And then she's got a picture of her daughter like with some country singer at the Today Show, which I think is kind of interesting. Country music star Dustin Lynch and my +1 daughter Aubrey spent time together in NBC's The Today Show green room. And I guess this is like a really big deal for. It's a really big deal. It's really cool to be on the Today Show. I've never been on the Today Show. It's a really big deal to be on the Today Show. You come from a small town and I totally get that. But again, going back to the comment about the sales of the book, again, you have to kind of go like, to what end is all this serving? She wrote this book. She writes it. She writes it so quickly. They put it out. It's not particularly well written. Has a lot of quotes from a lot of other books in it. I always feel like that kind of is done to sort of give it a little more weight. Takes segments from interviews, things of that nature. But I'm not here to like kill someone, other than the fact that lawyer Lori said to Neil Gordon that the book isn't very good, and he was mad at her for killing the book, and he said, no, the book is great, the book is excellent. No, Neil, come on now, man. Like, I love they do quote Cormac McCarthy in chapter 4. Word gets around when the circus comes to town, don't it? From Cormac McCarthy. And this is in the chapter 4, saying attorney representing attorney. And she starts talking about she says, I believe the admonishment Judge Newman gave defense attorney Jim Griffin over a retweet is minor compared to what he would have done if Jim's podcast from March the 23rd, 2023 would have been recorded during the trial. Well, guess what? The podcast was not recorded during the trial. The podcast was recorded after the trial. And, he can say whatever he wants. There is freedom of speech in that. But it is just... In doing research for this book, my co-writer, Neil R. Gordon, came across a podcast Jim appeared on. It was part of Matt Harris and Seton Tucker's series called The Murdaugh Family Murders Impact of Influence, which I keep mispronouncing. I was on that show too, talking about Buster Murdaugh's journey. I like both Matt and Seton Tucker, but I do think it's interesting that she's taking issue in writing a book that she hastily put out, that she clearly was planning to write the whole time, and putting out and currying favors with best-selling authors and journalists, and then throwing celebrity photos in here that she's admonishing the defense attorney for going on a podcast about the Murdaugh murders, talking about what happened. We already knew, I didn't already know because I don't know any of these people, but you can already tell that clearly Jim Harpootlian and Jim Griffin's or Dick Harpootlian, sorry, and Jim Griffin, like Jim Harpootlian or Dick Harpootlian especially loved the spotlight. Like, you can just tell the guy talks when he talks to cameras. He's very polished and very seasoned. So the fact that a lawyer wants to go in there and talk about themselves, come on, they're a lawyer. Why is this surprising? Nothing against lawyers, but I have a love-hate relationship with them. Hope to not hear from anytime soon. Yeah, it is just, So in 166, towards the end of the book, she says, not only was I an attendee at the conference this year, so that what she's talking about is Chief Justice Beatty and I bumped into each other at the Clerk of Court's conference in Myrtle Beach, and he remembered me calling him during the, quote, trial of the century. He was very grateful and kind to me. He was even supportive of me writing this book and gave me his blessing. So that was another little tagline in the that some of these articles that are coming out, that they are that they're saying like, oh yeah, she used this as an excuse to write a book. She's like, oh, the Chief Justice gave me his blessing to write a book, so therefore I was allowed to write a book. I'm pretty sure that the conversation between the Chief Justice and her did not go like, hey, Chief Justice Beatty, I need to talk to you. So I've been planning for a while I was clerk of courts, to write a book about my experiences in the Murdaugh trial. And I started taking notes on this before the trial even began, because I was planning on writing and rushing this book out, self-publishing it, and getting a book deal, possibly getting a book deal. Do you think I would be okay to write that book? No, I don't think she said that. I think she probably said something like, oh, I'm writing a book. What do you think? Oh, yeah, it's great. Sure, no problem. Just like here in Hollywood, when you say, hey, I'm writing a script, you go, hey, man, go for it. You're writing a script? Good for you. You're writing a screenplay? Great. Nobody actually thinks you're going to do it. Trust me, I know. When I made my film, people were like, wait, you actually made a film? Like, everybody says they're going to make a film. I was like, yeah, but I actually do it. But it's just funny. So then she goes on. So she got her blessing from the Chief Justice, Chief Justice Beatty. And then she says, not only was I an attendee at the conference this year, but I was also one of the speakers. I took the podium with the founder of Fitz News, Will Folks, who is with the investigative news organization that covered the Murdaugh stories online and via podcasts. He talked about the journalism side, and I spoke about the courtroom side, which included some interesting numbers that I researched for the presentation. I'll read you these numbers just because I've started down this rabbit hole. 2-day jury selection, 3-hour jury deliberation, 4th-generation lawyer, 5 women on the jury, 6 alternates, 7 men on the jury, 12 eggs given to a departing juror, 14th Circuit, 1,700 plus acres on the Moselle hunting property, 20 months after fatal shootings, 28-day trial, 75 witnesses. The room erupted with laughter when I referenced the eggs. So this is, by the way, you guys answered to me about the egg lady or the egg juror, which is kind of funny, actually, and probably something I would do as well. I'd be like, I want my eggs, damn it. Give me my eggs. After the session, okay. So the room erupted with laughter when I referenced the eggs. News had traveled fast about the dismissed juror wanting to make sure she collected her eggs from the jury room refrigerator before departing. After the session, I had a chance to, quote, gossip with my girls, some of the other female clerks of court in the Palmetto State. Questions ranged from whether there could have been 2 shooters to what it was like having Alec and his family in the courtroom under those circumstances. They also wanted my opinion on whether an appeal was likely. Guess what, Becky Hill? I think the opinion now is probably very, 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 very likely. We all compared notes and they empathized with what I felt was a bumpy start to my reading of the verdict. None of my colleagues had ever read directly from an indictment, which I did per Judge Newman's orders. Before my staff and I headed back to Walterboro, at the end of the week, we grabbed a bite to eat at a place called The Land Shark, a newish restaurant in North Myrtle Beach, Barefoot Landing. Patty Zimmerman was our waitress, and immediately we struck up a conversation. Now, I don't know a lot about Myrtle Beach, but I do remember Mother Fletcher's. For those of you who've been in Myrtle Beach, I went spring break, post-high school. Yes, Mother Fletcher's. That was like the place. What an interesting place Myrtle Beach is. Oh, hell, they call it the Redneck Riviera for a reason. It's really funny. I had a great time. Patty Zimmer was our waitress, and immediately we struck up a conversation which led to why we were in town. Once we told her about the clerk of court convention and that we were from Walterboro, we went from talking about, quote, today's specials to the nitty-gritty, the Murdaugh specials. Patty freely gave us her opinion and she told us the other waitresses had watched the trial and had strong opinions as well. Blah, blah, blah. It just seems, mostly Patty wondered how on earth the attorneys at Murdaugh's law firm, PMPED, didn't know anything about the client theft and company embezzlement. So this was when I told her I was writing a book about the trial called Behind the Doors of Justice. She and the girls just shouted with elation. A Low Country New York Times bestselling author whom I adore said, "Writing takes so much longer than reading, and it's not funny." How true those words are. Personally, I knew from the time of the tragic murders of Paul and Maggie that a Murdaugh story needed to be written. And at first I prayed that law enforcement would find the heartless killer who had gunned down a mother and her son. And it had to be someone who was familiar with the family and their comings and goings. At the time, Alec, the husband and father, supposedly had an alibi and wasn't home at the time of the murders. But on the second day after the murder occurs, law enforcement put out a bulletin saying no danger to the public, unquote. Anyways, I think it's very interesting that she said, I knew from the time of the tragic murders of Paul and Maggie that a Murdaugh story needed to be written. And there it is. Well, I've always heard it referred to as the Redneck Riviera was Myrtle Beach, but as part of that, but I guess not. But there you go. There you have it. This is Becky Hill's magnum opus of, just, yeah. It is. It's really sad in a lot of ways because, again, this is a book that was rushed out. It's not, look, I'm no literary critic, but I wouldn't say that I would put this up against anything that Cormac McCarthy ever wrote. That's for damn sure. Or she also quotes John Grisham. Yeah, not a John Grisham novel either. But I think that, again, the really unfortunate thing is that all this is called into not only account like her credibility, which is absolutely completely valid, like, because there are so many giveaways in this book of just the whole time she was plotting to do this, the forward with the journalist who she gave the seat to, et cetera, et cetera. No wonder she has ethics complaints against her. No wonder she has people coming out saying that she's, behaved in an inappropriate way, or she's taken advantage or abused her power. Like, no wonder. With all the proof, and then there's these checks being rewritten and all this. Like, what a bunch of nonsense. And at the end of the day, all of this does is undermine the work that the prosecution, that the investigators, that everyone who was involved. I mean, she talks about Kenny Kinsey, friend of the show, Dr. Kenny Kinsey, multiple degrees, PhD, did some really good work on the case, working on the Stephen Smith case now. These people worked tirelessly. Creighton Waters, these people worked really tirelessly on this case and gave their heart and soul to it. And to have just all of this seemingly like even called into question because someone is this solipsistic is just unbelievable. Like, that's the unconscionable thing. It's not only like, are you writing this, but you're doing it, and you're doing all of this on the counties, on your time of your job, while the taxpayers are paying you to do the job that you're supposed to do. And sort of the thing is, and like I talked about this before, the art of restraint and nuance, and just not like maybe having a little bit of restraint. She talks about in part of this that there was another book that was coming out in October written by a Wall Street Journal writer, a writer from the Wall Street Journal. So clearly she was aware of it enough to write it in this book, which came out in August. I thought it came out in September. Apparently it came out in August or something. Or at least it was announced on Amazon. Talking about how this, how there was another book coming out in October. So clearly you rushed to get this book out. And, it's just like she has no credibility left because of this. And it's just one walking contradiction after another. I saw Creighton play electric guitar with his band at CrimeCon this year. He's a fabulous guitar player. Way better than I am. I guess he's been playing since he's 16. I've been playing nearly that long. But his band was great. Great. They covered some Rolling Stones, so of course they're near and dear to my heart. But it's a shame. It's a shame that this is like, I was talking to somebody earlier today, friend of the show, and they said, this is just going to keep on going. And I said, yeah, it really is. It really is. I think the dominoes are going to continue to fall in this. And it really completely takes away from all the good work that was done by the people involved in the case. No matter what you think about Alec Murdaugh, what you think about his guilt or innocence, there were people that worked tirelessly to bring this case to justice or to try to find out or do the best job that they could. And now all of this is being thrown under the bus because of this dross. Like, come on. Like, really? Like, that's what makes me angry for people. And it makes me angry for the fact that people might have to like relive this and go through this nonsense because this woman just couldn't hold off writing a book, just couldn't hold off being like the superstar of the court. I thought the biggest ego in the room was supposed to be Alec Murdaugh. Clearly not. And then they try to justify all of it. That's the thing that's worse. They try to justify all of it. Cat loves cats. Cat skills. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Yeah, I did kill a whole book. Finally got to use my Post-its. Yeah. I mean, there's much more. It's just, I did find out that, Judge Newman did deal with the death of his, one of his children prior to the trial, which is really unfortunate as well. And can you just drag everybody through this? And it's very unnecessary. And it seems like for what? And as somebody actively said, she's not making any money off of it. Yeah, most likely not. And any money that she may have made is going to be spent on legal fees. It's a great cautionary tale for anyone that's in public service that wants to. I mean, I saw Kenny Kinsey at CrimeCon, and we talked about it, and we had texted over it, and he goes, "That's why I haven't said anything to anybody. I'm not going out there talking. I'm like, you do your job. You do your job. To the victor comes the spoils." If somebody reached out to her for a book, it's one thing. Somebody approached her and said, "Hey, let's write this book. I'm a writer from Penguin Random House. We'll get a deal. We'll put a book together." That's a different story. This is all just an effort, and just you can tell that she just wanted to be the star of the show, and that's what makes it all so unfortunate. Because now you've just dragged a whole community through all your dirty laundry, all your rubbish, and there's just going to be more and more and more that comes out, and there's name calling and just this. It's really bad. And who knows? Tina Luffman says, maybe she's paying a possible jail time. I mean, who knows? No charges have been filed against her, but charges have been filed against her son. One count of wiretapping. Like, what is his thing in all this too? Like, what is going to come out about him? Unbelievable. And there's no new trial been announced or anything like that, but they are obviously the sharpest people involved in this. Were all on the defense. Well, besides the prosecution, I should say, but let me rephrase that. Not the sharpest people. There's many sharp people involved in this on both sides. Kenny Kinsey, Creighton Waters, the prosecutorial team, the investigators, all everybody did a fabulous job. Fantastic people. But very savvy sharks are Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin. I don't know them at all, but I know that they will jump on this, and they have, and they are going to play this up for everything that it is worth. And that's what makes it all just so unfortunate. Is it just why give them any more ammunition? I pulled ammunition out of this from looking at this for an hour and a half. I pulled that much ammunition out from getting this on Amazon and going through it. What do you think a lawyer that does this for a living, that has paralegals and teams of people, they are going to pick? I mean, there's not much to pick apart. 174 pages. 2,100 some emails with more to be released, I'm sure. Oy vey, as we say. Oy vey. Big shout out to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me wherever you may be watching or listening, and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making me a part of your day. The comedy, and I'm sure we'll just keep rolling through with this. This is just the gift that keeps on giving. Unfortunately, the gift that keeps on giving. It's just it all distracts from this man right here, Alec Murdaugh. Like, it all distracts from the crimes that he perpetrated. I better get a better manicure going on before I put my hands on camera. It all distracts from the things that he did, which is, he victimized. I mean, obviously he has been convicted for the murders of his wife and son, but also, the victimization of the people who he stole money from and his law partners and all of this nonsense too. It just takes the spotlight off of that, because there is so much money that has not apparently been accounted for in this whole Murdaugh mess too. Like, now we're taking away time and resources from that to deal with this nonsense. And you know what wouldn't surprise me either? If it came out one day that she was in collusion with him, because she literally says in the, to take attention away from him. That wouldn't surprise me either. I don't think that's actually the case, but you never know. That wouldn't surprise me, because nothing surprises me in this. She talks about how she was conflicted, how she knew Alec Murdaugh. It was important to both Judge Newman and the clerk of court office that we conducted, quote, Murdaugh business out in the open to respect our nation's First Amendment process, which they clarify as the freedom of speech. I guess maybe some people don't understand that, though. So obviously Neil Gordon didn't understand that when he was arguing with lawyer Lori. Judge Newman felt the media had a right to be there and write their stories, just like anyone involved in the legal process had a right to do their jobs in this case. He was okay with media personnel being in the courtroom as long as they respected the process and followed the rules. It is just, yeah. She mentions Fit News again. And Mandy Matney's Murdaugh Murders podcast. I really wish I had been familiar with this case years ago, because it is I can see why people are absolutely caught up in this. It is absolutely fascinating. I mean, but I think that what's become more fascinating is like all of this nonsense after the fact. The warring factions, like, forget Murdaugh. Like, I mean, not forget Murdaugh. Horrible stuff going on there. But then these other characters, these ancillary characters, this becomes almost a bigger story in a lot of ways than the actual crime, which again is not something that, as someone who is a victim, a homicide survivor, as a victim, talks about victims' rights, wants to see justice for victims and for, people who go through this, and wants to see a community move past all this nonsense. Like, I'm angry. I'm angry that this has happened, that this woman just could not resist. She couldn't just walk away. For what? To what end? Again, to what end? What, to sell a few books on Amazon? To then it's just been Aretha Bell. It has been a real trip. Thanks for reading this book at the speed of light to share with us, Collier Landry. You are most certainly welcome, Gen X Granny. Hi, lawyer's daughter. Great to see you, too. Dave Bass, 7783. How to murder a murder case. Indeed. Yeah, I heard Mandy Matney's show is pretty good. I'm telling you, she has sabotaged the guilty verdict, says Juliana Rodriguez, intentionally. Yeah, who knows? It is, it is a real thing. Thank you so much, Collier. I sure wish you all a peaceful evening surrounded by so much love. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere yet, but I wanted to thank everybody, because I normally do that at the beginning of the show, and I forgot, because I was so excited with this magnum opus. It's like reading Ulysses. It's amazing. It's amazing. Oy vey. How not to properly write a book. I do like the cover, though. I'll give him credit for the cover and the back cover. It is, it's like reading a tabloid. I mean, it gives background and stuff, but, again, it's very remedial. I don't know. I mean, I'm not here to, like, torch somebody's book, but, I mean, I'm here to torch with the ways and the and the intentions with which they decided to write this, because again, it sort of negates everything, and then it calls into question. Like, here we are talking about she could have been paid to sabotage all this. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. What do you guys think? I mean, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm telling you what I think. What do you guys think? Let's read some more comments here. Zelda Paris says she could have been paid to sabotage the verdict. Entirely possible, because you're not going to believe her if she says no. And come on, Maureen Francis says, come on and hit that like button. Yes, please hit that like button. Hit subscribe. It's sad, isn't it? Says Karen Fan. Yes, Karen Fan, it is sad. Absolutely. Does your book feel silky? Yes, it does. It has a very silky smooth cover. It has a very silky smooth cover, just like, hold on, wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. It's here. She ruled with an iron fist. Miss Becky was loved and respected and happily obeyed. She ruled with an iron fist, deceivingly wrapped in the softest of silk. Just like my silky cover of the book. Low-hanging fruit, I know, but I had to do it. I had to do it. It does. It does feel silky, Aretha Bell. It does. Can you color in it? No, there is no coloring. There's no choose your own adventure. There's no, like, if you think if there was 2 shooters, jump to page 76. If you think there's 1 shooter, please advance to page 168. Like, there's none of that. Did you guys ever read those, the like choose your own adventure novels? I used to read the G.I. Joe ones when I was a kid. Those were pretty cool. Yeah, G.I. Joe. I liked G.I. Joe. Yeah. Honestly, this could have been written with ChatGPT, to be honest with you. You could have just scoured the internet and just taken every article from Murdaugh's and just dropped it into ChatGPT and said, write me a book, and then gone and corrected a lot of it. ChatGPT does not do the best with spelling or grammar, by the way. Yeah. Oh boy. It is just a, and now I'm back to square one, I'm afraid. Yeah, I think Stance MB, it is back to square one, I'm afraid. I mean, look, we'll find out. 2024 is upon us. Yeah, choosing ChatGPT or not Jarvis. Wait, hold on. Is it no. Jarvis? Maybe Jarvis was the thing from the AI from the Marvel movies, from Iron Man. No. It's not Jarvis, but it's Jervis. I don't know. Anyways, it's an AI program for writers. Call you're covering the Becky Hill info. Yes, I am. Jasper, thank you on the outskirts. Jasper. That's it. Jasper. Will she be fired? Why hasn't that happened already? I would imagine she'd probably lose her job. As they said in the article, the other day, she had told people that she was packing her things up and starting to take stuff out of the office, fearing that she was going to potentially lose her job, told her staff that. That's kind of, I mean, how could you not be fired? I mean, who knows? Who knows? Who knows what is really happening? Like, no thanks. Oh, no, you want money. I really just don't like when these article services, they won't let you read on. It's kind of annoying. Let's see. Yeah, she supposedly told people that she was walking away. I'm trying to find the article that talked about that. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the South Carolina AG, Alan Wilson, announced that his office would assume the jurisdiction of the investigation into Jeff Hill as part of a broader corruption inquiry. The investigation into Hill's actions took another turn when his employment termination letter also cites sexual and other forms of illegal harassment. Yeah, we didn't even talk about that, like the charges against her son. Becky Hill's son, like now escalated to like he sexually harassed one of his coworkers. I mean, oy vey. That's a slippery. That's just not good. Like, why? But again, and I hate to say this because I don't like to use the apple falls far from the, doesn't fall far from the tree, because that's a narrative I've been trying to combat my whole life. But if her son abuses power, like, where did he learn it from? Mom abuses her power. I mean, I don't know. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That is a saying. And yeah, I think if you type in story game, there should be a romance where you choose. Should be a romance where you choose what character. Oh, that's funny. She was elected, so there'd have to be an impeachment, I think, says Jenny and Gen X Granny. I don't know. The governor would have to ask her to step down. So much happening in the dark. Gen X Granny says, I would always read both. I'm assuming you're talking about the choose your own adventures. I would do the same thing. Like, how could you not? Like, that's just terrible. Like, loved your comedy on such a sad ordeal. I know, but we got to laugh about these things. I mean, I've laughed in many other shows where I talk about my father's letters and his comedy of his just complete narcissism. It's just, I don't know. It's a really sad and unfortunate thing, like I said. But you got to have a sense of humor about it, or else you go crazy. Because you'll be really irate. But we'll see. We shall see what happens. We are 3 days away from the new year. Wow, 3 days away from the new year. Get your resolutions in early, kids. Yeah, there's a lot of people. Yeah, there's her daughter at the country music star. I think I may have showed this already. Country music star Dustin Lynch. I don't know anything about him. Oh, yeah, lots of photos. Photo by Melissa Gordon. There you go. Portrait of Alec Murdaugh's grandfather, Buster Murdaugh, which hangs at the back of the Colleton County Courthouse. It was removed during the trial, which I remember reading about that. Hey, there's Kenny Kinsey. Got his little vest on. He's looking sharp. He looks like an investigator. That's him right there. Right there. Boop, 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 boop. There you go. I'm very nervous about my hands putting them on camera. I did put some lotion on. I stand where I stood when I read the verdicts. Photo by Melissa Gordon. So I thought Melissa Gordon wasn't allowed in the. I thought that was the argument that she wasn't there. I mean, who knows? The husband's like, she took the photo Melissa Gordon. Here she is outside the photo pit. A photo captures the end of one day at the trial with deputies transporting Alec Murdaugh back to the county jail before the trial resumed the next morning. Photo Melissa Gordon. Well, that's the back entrance when he goes to, he gets transported out of there. Attorney Joe McCullough was a constant at the Murdaugh trial, splitting time in the courtroom and guest appearances on the Law and Crime Network. I mean, everybody doing everything. Photo Melissa Gordon. And that's the wife of Neil Gordon, who he vehemently defended, saying Lori came after his wife and used inappropriate language, which apparently she did not, by the way. She roasted him on the Court TV thing a few weeks ago. I don't know Lori personally, but she seems like she's a sharp cookie. Sharp cookie. I can't believe I said that. Anyways, Trista the barista. Behind the Drawers of Justice. There you go. Magnum opus from Becky H. Hill and Neil R. Gordon. If you feel so inclined, I'm sure they're still selling. They claim they're not selling it on Amazon, but they still are. I would keep your money. Maybe bet it on the New York Jets winning the Super Bowl. Might be a better investment. Just kidding. Oh, just kidding. Football fans, 49ers playing the Washington Commanders this weekend, 12.5-point favorites. Let's get back on track. Brock Purdy. What are your football teams, guys? Baltimore Ravens demolished my 49ers on Monday Night Football on Christmas. It was not a good scene. It was not a good scene. I don't know if it was really technically Monday Night Football. It was just Christmas Day football. Unfortunate thing. What are your teams, guys? Anybody into sports here? Yeah. Miami Dolphins. Eagles. Oh, Maureen Francis says Eagles. Maureen Francis, is this Maureen Vita? Is this Go 49ers, Rhonda Weaver? You know it. I was born in Philadelphia. But I am not, I like the Eagles. I was happy when they won the Super Bowl. Man, they tore that city apart. They won the Super Bowl a few years back. I'm surprised that the Eagles will probably finish the season at 13-4, 12-5, but they do not look like last year's Eagles at all. At all. I don't think they're going to go very far. And the Kansas City Chiefs, alas, do not look like the Kansas City Chiefs that we've grown to know and love over the last. Well, I don't really love the Chiefs at all. I don't have any love for the Chiefs. I'm over the Chiefs. I'm ready for a new. I'm just tired of them. Tired of them. Yeah, they do not look good. The Eagles don't look good. Cowboys. Sherry B says Cowboys. Oh, Sherry B. I'm sorry to say. They're the Cowboys. They're the Cowboys, much like Cleveland Browns fans. Cowboys fans are also used to disappointment. Hey, at least the Cowboys won some Super Bowls back in the 90s because they were red hot back then. Oh boy. I feel bad for all the Cowboys fans because they look, I thought for sure this year was going to be their year. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. We shall see. They have a very solid team. Cowboys have a very solid team. Can they just get over? Micah Parsons hasn't looked like himself lately. And even though he likes to jaw on his podcast, likes to tweet on Twitter, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Good old Cowboys. I'm not a Dak Prescott hater. I like Dak. He's really good at dealing with the media too. But I think they just, every year they just don't get there and you're just kind of bummed, but hey, maybe it'll be this year, but go Niners. That's what I say. Go Niners. But actually at the end of the day, I really don't care. Like if it's not life or death for me. Anyways, Cincinnati Bengals, they play the Chiefs. I hope they beat the Chiefs this weekend. Really bad break for Joe Burrow. And they're going to lose one of their star receivers next year because they're not going to be able to afford anybody. A really unfortunate thing. Yeah. Well, Cowboys have had a good run, but not for a long time. Golden State Warriors, says Rhonda Weaver and Steph Curry. Golden State Warriors were the bane of my existence for 4 years. But 1 year, on a summer afternoon in 2016, the Cleveland Cavaliers defeated the Golden State Warriors, their first ever championship. And I cried my eyes out. What an amazing moment that was. But Steph Curry's legend for sure. All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much to all of my channel subscribers, to my channel members, and to my Patreon patrons. This weekend, we are having our live channel member and Patreon patron live meet and greet. If you are a paid member of either groups, you are invited. There will be a link. There is a poll on both platforms. We are either going to do it at 3 p.m. Eastern on the 30th, so in 2 days from now, or the 31st, New Year's Eve. I'm giving you guys the option. Either way, you guys pick it. Majority Rules, and then we'll put out the link. We do that on Google Meet. If you're not a channel member or a Patreon member, please join, and then you can join all of us. And it's just like our little fun interaction here, except you guys got to actually meet each other and talk to each other live. In fact, I don't do much talking at all. You guys get to tell all your fun stories and interact, and it's really quite cool. And I just kind of take a back seat. Or we can read more Murdaugh murder, more behind the doors of justice. But anyways, thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you all so much for liking, for subscribing, for telling people about the show. I greatly appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are finding this entertaining. I'm finding this rather entertaining too, to be honest with you. I'm not the biggest true crime fan, but I'll tell you what, this Becky Hill saga has gotten my attention. So thank you all so much for tuning in. It's good to see effectively. I love it. I'm Collier Landry. I'll see you on the next one.
This podcast is made possible by support from listeners just like you. For exclusive content around this podcast, please consider supporting me via Patreon by going to collierlandry.com/support. Please subscribe via Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and please leave us a 5-star review. If you want to see video episodes of this podcast, please check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/collierlandry. You can find links to additional resources in the show notes of today's episode. This podcast is a production of Don't Touch My Radio. Copyright Collier Landry.